Good morning and welcome. Thank you for joining us for another edition of the New England Chapter Connects. My name is Regina Hackett. I am the Communications Coordinator for the Connecticut T2 Center, and I'm also on the Educational and Public Works Awareness Committees for the New England Chapter, and I will be today's Zoom producer. Our topic for today is gravel road maintenance 101, keeping things smooth. Got gravel roads that giving you a rough ride. Join us for this easygoing 1-hour webinar where we'll break down the basics of keeping gravel roads in good shape. Whether you're dealing with potholes, washboarding, or drainage headaches, we've got tips and tricks to help you get the job done right without the guesswork. This session is perfect for anyone who maintains gravel roads, whether it's part of your job or just part of your land. We'll cover what materials work best, how to grade properly, and how to fix things, those recurring trouble spots. And just a couple more things before we officially get started. A special thanks to the APWA New England Chapter Connect sponsors. Without the support of our sponsors, we cannot bring all of the valuable programs and events to our members and the public works community. Our chapter events are made possible because of the generous support of our sponsors, and their continued support of the chapter is so very important. Thank you, chapter sponsors. And we hope that you find the New England Chapter Connect series worthwhile and informative and a way to stay connected. Our upcoming webinar in October is leveraging drones for public works projects, increasing project accuracy without the cost of traditional land surveys. It will be held on Thursday, October 23rd at our normal time, 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. When we do get started with the presentation, I'll put a link in the box so that you can register today. And also, don't forget to complete the online evaluation form at the end of this session. I will put up a link in the chat box and a QR code up on the screen. Your feedback is very important to us, so if you could just take a moment to do that at the end, that would be great. And then also, if you have missed a past session of ours, they all are pre-recorded, and you can find them at the newengland.apwa.org at the website there, so you can watch all of our pre-recorded sessions. And then lastly, if you're not an APWA member and you would like to be, or you would like more information on New England Chapter Connect sessions or other chapter events, or you're interested in becoming a sponsor, please visit newengland.apwa.org to get that information for you today. All right, and then I'm really excited to introduce Mike Smith. Mike Smith will be our presenter today. He's a training and technical specialist for Baystate Roads. He was a highway superintendent for over 20 years, where he developed and implemented modern road maintenance techniques. So welcome, Mike.
Thanks.
I'll let you have the screen.
All right. How's everybody doing today? That's what I figured. Yeah, it's tough to get a response when everybody's muted. But I get it. So I'm going to share my screen. Hopefully I can remember how to do all this and everything will work right. Hopefully at this point you're all seeing the big slide that says UMTC Baystate Roads Gravel Road Maintenance on it. That's kind of what I'm looking at on my end as well.
Good to go.
All right, awesome. I say that, but I'm looking at the wrong thing on my end. But that's okay. We'll make it work anyway. So when Tom and Regina reached out to me and asked me to do this, we kind of agreed that this would be I'm not sure if we said 10,000 or 30,000 foot view of gravel road maintenance. So this is somewhere between 10 and 100,000 feet above your gravel road. And I'm going to try to keep my slide presentation to around 30 minutes to allow for plenty of time for questions at the end. However, I'm kind of an interactive guy, so if you have any questions during this presentation, feel free to unmute yourself, just yell at me and say, "Hey, bald guy," or anything else that you want to call me, and I'll stop and we'll talk about whatever it is you want to talk about. You got to be careful though, because Shane Mark is also sitting in on this, and if he turns his camera on, you'll notice that I'm not the only big, beautiful bald guy here today. So some things that I hope that you will get out of this training today. At the end of it, you should be able to talk about different types of gravel, describe what a proper crown or slope on a road would be, identify some dust control techniques or choices that you might make, talk about drainage, and discuss inspection and what that actually means. Not all gravel is created equal. We start off with a good gravel spec, or we should start off with a good gravel spec. If you're buying gravel from anybody, I hope that you go out to bid for it. If you make your own, that's okay too, as long as you know what you're looking for. And a specification comes down to a sieve analysis where you take all those stacks of, for lack of better terminology, spaghetti strainers, right? And you shake gravel through them. You start off with a sized sieve like an inch and a half, and then it gets smaller, smaller, smaller. You want to have a good spec, and there's probably conjecture about that too. What's a good spec? And it's going to be different everywhere in the world or everywhere in the country. The Northeast is fairly similar. If you're in a really dry area in the Northeast or where you are, you might want a little bit higher content at the higher numbered sieves, like the 200 sieve. You might want to get your numbers up around 6 or 9% to add more polymer. And if you're in a really wet area, you want to keep that number lower. So getting specs that work for you is important. And then when you have failures in your gravel or it doesn't do what you want it to, you can go back and look at those specs and find out what is it that's wrong, and you have a way to fix that. And at the end of this, my contact information will come up too. So you can always send me questions via, excuse me, email, text, phone call, whatever you'd like, and I'll get back to you eventually. I don't usually answer the questions or answer my emails and stuff on a day that I'm teaching, but I will get back to you. Inspecting your material as it's delivered. You have all those trucks rolling into a stockpile, perhaps. You're buying gravel from a vendor and you're not really there paying attention, or you just show up and stack it up and you're not really looking at it when it's being delivered, or if you're having it delivered to the road. Be an animal. Be out there, look at that gravel, make sure it's what it's supposed to be, make sure it was well blended when it came from your vendor. Make sure they're not trying to sneak something past you when they think you're not looking. And if you have any issues with it, you think that it doesn't have enough stone, it has too much stone, it has too much polymer, it turns into mud, whatever you think the failure of that gravel is, have it tested by an independent testing agency like United Testing and I'm not plugging them. That's the only name that came to mind at the moment. There are other companies out there who will test your gravel. Do not do it yourself. I can't stress that enough. If any product, and this applies across the board in public works, don't test it yourself. Have it done by someone who does not have a vested interest in it. So that means not by you, not by the vendor, because it's really easy to say that you have a biased opinion of it, have it done by someone else. You can be there, you can witness the test, but make sure that they're the ones doing it. And if you've ever seen an actual test on a pile of gravel, it's not as simple as shoveling up a 5-gallon bucket and taking it off to the lab and sniffing it and tasting it. There's a little bit more to it than that. And then have some evaluation of its performance. You should have an idea what you're expecting of this gravel before you even buy it. You should have an idea of, is it going to pack well? Is it going to retain moisture well? Is it going to retain too much moisture? All those things. You should have an idea of what that gravel is going to do for you before you buy it and put it on the road. That way, when you evaluate it, you will evaluate it a little bit more objectively. Well, pardon me for 1 second while I make that go away. We don't need to be looking at Teams while I'm trying to talk here. All right, there, let's do that. Now, if I can get my PowerPoint back, we'll be in good shape. Sorry about that, folks.
Mm.
It's been a minute since I did online training. There, are you back to seeing the understanding gravel slide,
Yep,
everybody? All right, perfect.
looks
And now
good.
it's working better on my end too. All right, so I'm going to use some interactivity today. This is a Mentimeter question, and you can answer this question in a couple of different ways. You can go to menti.com, and then you enter the code that you see at the top up here, this big 8-digit code, I believe it is. You can enter that code, or if you want to use your smartphone, you can use this QR code right here, scan that, and it will give you an opportunity to answer this question. And then if I was smart enough, I'd know how to post the results for you so you could see them. Um, oh, there we go. It's working. Look at that. I was hoping it would do that. So the more people that type, words in here, the more words that will show up. I do believe that's how that works. Hmm. Well, I guess we're just going to go with millings today. That's okay. I'm not going to. Oh, there we go. It's still working. Process there. That's one of the words I was looking for right there. Processed or processed gravel. I was hoping somebody would say there. Processed aggregate. Crushed gravel.
Someone in the chat box just put processed gravel too.
Okay. Thanks. And I think I can make this go away so we can see better too, or not. No, I guess not. So this QR code is going to be an issue. I spent a lot of time working with this on future slides that are coming up here. This thing's probably going to get in the way unless I can. There we go. I can make it go away finally.
Oh,
Hopefully you can.
and I do apologize. The actual website is mentimeter.com. So if anyone who's trying to do it that
Oh,
way,
I'm sorry.
it's
It
not
is. It's
Menti.
meant right. It's not Menti.
No, it's Mentimeter.
I thought.
I
Okay.
just plugged it in.
All right. Because this slide is directly from them, and I thought if you went to mentimeter.com, you had to log in, but Menti would allow you
Um,
uh, to answer this question. But I'm going to take your word for it because
oh yeah, Menti's working. All right.
okay, perfect. However you do it, whatever you do. All right, so we have a lot of what's in the yard. I love it. Uh, you brutal honesty is per yeah. We use whatever's in the yard. Okay, I like that. Processed gravel, crushed gravel, all this stuff. Souls of airmen. Geez, I know who put that up there. The souls of airmen. Not everyone could be in the Air Force. All you Army guys, I got to tell you, I know exactly who wrote that. All right, we're going to move on from this one, just because I can't take the abuse any longer. No, I'm kidding. I could take it all day long. In my opinion, there are two kinds of gravel for a gravel road. You have crushed gravel and you have processed gravel. Those are the two kinds of gravel that we're going to use on the road. So what does that mean? Processed can mean just about anything. Crushed means that it has to go through some type of crushing process. You run it through a crushing plant, it breaks the stones and makes them smaller. And each one has a good place and should be used in that place, and they perform pretty well when they're used properly. I personally don't think processed gravel should be on a gravel road unless the process is crushing. I know it sounds kind of silly, right? I just said there's two kinds of gravel, processed and crushed. Well, if you say processed, did you define the process? If you put out a bid spec for processed gravel, did you put out a bid spec that included the process? Because if I go to a gravel bank and I take my shovel and I start digging out of the gravel bank and I load a dump truck with my shovel, that's processed gravel. If I throw one stone out and I don't put it in that dump truck, right? I'm digging away and I'm throwing stuff in the truck, giving you a load of processed gravel. Oh, I don't like this. I'll throw that over here and I'll put that in the truck. That's a process. It's not a good process, but it is a process. Processed quite often means screened, not crushed. Crushed gravel is what we should use on a travel surface or a gravel road. Crushed gravel means you have broken or angular stone. Those stones give you 7 times the holding strength of any round stone. Round stone is what you get in a processed gravel. That's just going through a screening plant. It's a good material to use in a lot of places, but you will not have the kind of compaction that you want or need on a gravel road with processed gravel or round stone gravel. It works really good for drainage. It works good in a very low volume area, like perhaps a parking lot or a walkway. I don't think I'd even use it on a bike path because of bicycle traffic. I'd want that packing. So I'm a crushed gravel kind of person. I want whatever the size is. I want it to go through a crusher in order to give me that longevity that I'm looking for. Processed gravels tend to fail more quickly, and unless we define the process, they could be just about anything. And pretty much all of the stuff that I teach about and talk about, I had to learn the hard way when I was a DPW director. I didn't like the gravel that we were getting. I thought that, what is this stuff? I can't make it pack. And I said, well, it's processed gravel. And I said, well, what's the process? Somebody said, well, the process is we run it through an 1.5 inch screen and put it in the truck and bring it to you. Well, that's not a very good process, in my opinion. Crushed gravel costs more, right? Going to pay more for that. That's a complaint that I hear a lot of times. Well, we can't afford processed gravel. And my response to that is usually you can't afford not to use processed gravel. If I can keep it on the road longer and I have less loss due to migration from water or dust or vehicle traffic, that means that I'm spending a little more money up front, but my return on investment's much larger on the back end. So I'm going to use that crushed gravel. I already said all that stuff, so I'm going to move right on from that. Blending is important. Some of you might make your own gravel. Maybe you have a whole bunch of products in your yard you blend together. Maybe you have your own crusher and you take rubble from other road projects like asphalt chunks and concrete and God knows what, bricks, and you throw it in here, you crush it yourself. That's great. I think that's a wonderful idea and a great way to use up uh, resources without spending a lot of money. But getting it blended properly is important. Having the right amount of angular or broken stone, the right amount of smaller things like fines, sands, and polymers. They all have a job to do. Those smaller fines, the sandy kind of stuff, those will fill the voids around your angular stone. And then the polymer or the silt type stuff, that's what binds that gravel together and gives it that elasticity that we need so that it doesn't just blow off in times of low moisture like we've had all summer, at least where I live. I can't speak for Connecticut, but here where I live in Western Mass, um, I don't know what is happening. There's this strange substance falling from the sky for the last few days that I really don't know what it is. I asked somebody the other day, what is this? And they said it's called rain. And I said, what is rain? I've never heard of it. And they said it's water that falls from the sky. And I said, now you're just making stuff up because we haven't had any in so long that kind of forgot what it was like. But you need a good blend of the clay, the plastic polymer stuff, the sands, and the stones to bind together. Here's the next question. How often do you grade your roads? And I'm going to leave the QR code up there for a few minutes so everybody can use it, but it is going to be in the way for one of those answers there. Um, I'll let you answer that question, and I'll take that QR code down in a few minutes after we get a couple responses. And grading can mean just about anything. So if you have a grader and you're out there with a grader, great. If you go out with a bobcat, let's say, or a bucket loader that has a blade attachment on it, that's still a type of grading. So that counts too, whatever you want to put in there for an answer. I know in
We
my
do
community,
have the other Jeff Cathcart wrote 13 miles of gravel road 3 times a year in the chat
13
box.
miles 3 times a year. Okay. All right. So I guess my next question is more rhetorical. You don't have to answer this, but you can. I'm just going to let this one keep populating. I'm going to make this QR code go away though, so that we can see the first answer. So those were the choices I gave you: once a year, twice a year, only when it's needed, and we don't have a grader. So that might mean that we don't ever grade the roads. When I started working for the town I live in here in the town of Heath, they routinely graded all 27 miles of gravel twice a year. And I thought, okay, that's the way we do things. And it was the way that they always did things. And then I changed our gravel road maintenance program and I started looking at things, and almost everyone that has gravel roads in the Northeast United States will have to grade them in the spring. After we plowed all winter, we've had plenty of freeze thaw cycles, everything's out of shape. We have ruts and potholes, this big mess, and we all grade our roads. But if you have a good quality gravel, you blade that road properly, you add dust control to it, and you get it really compacted well, do you have to regrade it in the fall just for the sake of regrading it? And in my world, the answer finally became no. We don't have to do that. So we don't. Um, we grade our roads for sure once a year, and then after that, only if it's needed, meaning in the fall before we put them to bed for the winter, if they have a lot of defects, absolutely, we're going to regrade that road. We're going to run the motor grader up and down that road, get to the bottom of those distresses, reshape, recompact, and re-add dust control to that road. Um, I think that's a really good approach to gravel road maintenance. If there's nothing wrong with the road, we don't have to do anything to it. That's Edith Bunker mentality for those of you that are old enough to remember All in the Family. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. If the road doesn't have distresses in it, you don't have to do anything to it. When you think about your asphalt roads, if there's no distresses, if there's no cracks, if there's nothing wrong with the road, we generally don't put much money into it. And then as it starts to fall off the curve, you start seeing hairline cracks. You do your crack fills and crack seals and things like that. And things get a little worse. Maybe you do a thin overlay like a microchip. But when it's in good shape, we kind of leave them alone. And gravel, you can do the same thing. You don't have to regrade it just because that's what Grandpa did. The shape of that crown. This is something that tends to cause a little bit of discussion from time to time. Should be a tangential crown like this. It should have straight lines from the center line out to the ditch or the foreslope of the ditch if you're fortunate enough to have gravel roads that are wide enough to have a foreslope and then a ditch and then a back slope. That's great. If you live where I live, a lot of times this doesn't exist, and this slope here comes right over to the edge of a stone wall or a steep embankment or a drop off. But it should be straight lines. It shouldn't be a parabolic crown. A parabolic crown is a rounded crown. It would have this rounded shape to it. You want to shape your gravel road just like an asphalt road. When you think about an asphalt road, the paver usually goes down one side of your road paving and then goes down the other side of the road paving. It's not often that they pave two lanes at once when they're putting asphalt on the road. Gravel should be shaped the same way. That way you maintain the same slope from the center of the road all the way to the ditch, and you can control the water flow sideways when the water is flowing from the center of the road toward the ditch. You're doing it at a controlled rate, and it's the same all the way across. How much slope? I'm glad somebody asked. Half an inch per foot, or about 6%. That's what I would recommend on your gravel roads, about 6% on your gravel roads. There was a long time, especially in the Northeast, where people talked about a quarter inch per foot. And my friend Matt Olberg from Montana, who runs the Montana LTAP, which is the same as the T2 Center in Connecticut, he and I were talking one day, and he says, "Well, we live in the quarter inch world." And I said, "What do you mean by that, Matt?" And he goes, "What's the slope on your bathtub?" I don't know. I have never thought about it. What's the slope on your kitchen sink? I don't know. I never thought about it. It's a quarter of an inch. Can't feel it. You don't really know that when water is going down the drain in your tub that that's a quarter of an inch per foot, but that's what it is. And it's not quite enough for a gravel road. On a hard surface road, it very well could be enough because you have that impervious surface and the water travels a little faster and it's a little bit easier for it to get off the road. But on a gravel surface, you have a little bit more retention of that water, or it's a little harder for it to move. So a little bit more crown is good, about a half an inch per foot. Oh, I already gave it away. So you don't even have to answer this one. That was that question there is how much crown is needed. I'll let you answer it though, just in case you have a difference of opinion than I do. Move that over there so you can see the questions better. Because there is something on there that might change your opinion. That depends on the season. Maybe you change the amount of crown you have for the winter. And if that answer comes up, that's the one I would really like to talk about the most is does it depend on the season? In my world, it does not depend on the season. I'm doing a half an inch per foot year round, and I don't change that in the winter, where a lot of people want to lessen the crown in the winter. So we have a couple up there, at least one or two up there now that say depends on the season. So the depends on the season usually means you're taking the crown down a little bit in the wintertime. So you don't have as much crown on the road in the winter on your gravel road. And I guess the question I would ask, and you can't answer it on the slide, but you sure can answer it either in the chat or you can unmute yourself and tell me, is do you change the crown on your asphalt roads in the wintertime as well? I'm guessing probably not, right? Those asphalt roads have the same amount of crown on them year round. Most of the people who tell me they take crown off their gravel road in the wintertime are doing it because they're worried about that road being slippery, getting icy or something like that. And with less crown, there's less likelihood that you're going to slide off the road. So then my response to that is, well, what's making the road slippery? Ice. Where do you get ice from? Water. If there's water on the road, what do you want to do with it? I want to get it off the road. If I remove the crown, how do I get the water off the road? If you keep that half inch per foot year round, you'll have less water and less ice on your gravel road. The argument that I got here in my town from people that worked here before I started working here was, well, I don't want to slide off the road with my plow vehicle while I'm plowing. And our roads are so narrow that you couldn't drive on the right side of the crown if you tried. It's just not wide enough, so we're straddling the crown all the time. Having that half-inch per foot crown on our road actually makes it a little easier to keep the truck in the road because it has to slide over the crown in order to slide off the road. I will tell you that there are some exciting rides that we've all taken on a icy gravel road in the winter, but at least the truck stayed in the road for the most part. That's kind of what I'm looking for, that half-inch per foot. Cars will tend to drive in their own lane that way when you have a tangential crown with about a half an inch per foot. That's kind of what it should look like. Most gravel roads are low volume, low speed roads, 500 in the Northeast anyway. They're 500 cars a day or less, and usually they're not a high speed road. Higher speeds and higher volume of traffic will cause the road to fail more quickly. Heavy loads will cause the road to fail more quickly. Log trucks and things like that. In Massachusetts, we're not allowed to post a gravel road for weight, like in the spring of the year, saying nothing over 10,000 pounds allowed on this roadway, unless you can provide a detour for all those other vehicles to be able to navigate wherever they need to go, which is pretty much impossible. So it's not legal in Massachusetts to post that. Vermont, I believe it is, and I don't know whether it is in Connecticut or not. Um, Other things that cause problems on gravel roads is the grader itself, operating too fast, not having the correct blade pitch and things like that. Those can cause problems as well. Um, I thought I'd taken this slide out. This is a slide of whether or not the question here is whether or not this is a properly shaped gravel road. Most people say no, it's not. It's way too flat, and the truth is that's almost a perfect half an inch per foot. I took this picture after I got out with a level and I checked to see what the slope on this road was. And this is a fairly typical New England gravel road. This is sometime after it had been graded. You can see the rows of stone here, here, and here in between the wheel tracks. That's pretty typical for that loose aggregate to kind of windrow off and get left there. I wouldn't get rid of that stuff. I would use that. I would blow the leaves off this road, and when I grade that for the fall, I'm going to blend all that right back into the roadway. But that is just about a half an inch per foot. You can't see it. You can't feel it from the grader. I think I have about 10,000 hours in a grader seat, and I'll tell you, it's pretty tough to feel a half an inch per foot sitting in a 772 Grade Pro machine or 772 CH. I'm kind of a John Deere guy. I don't mind cat, but what can I say? I'm just a John Deere guy. Grader operators should not be in a hurry. I know the boss might be after you. Hurry up. We got all these miles of road to grade. We got to go. We got to go. Slow down and do the job right. Make many, many passes on that road. And what I mean by a pass is if you drive from point A to point B, that's a pass. Then you turn around and drive from point B back to point A, that's another pass, right? So back and forth, back and forth. For me, the minimum number on my best day grading a road is probably 6 passes, 3 in each direction, in order to get that done. That's if I'm having a really good day. I don't think I've ever done one in 4. When I started working here in the town that I live in, they were doing it in 3. 3 passes, that was it. They would go down one side of the road, they would come back on the other, and they were really stressing to get that windrow gravel right in the center of the roadway. Then they would drive the third pass down that road with the blade perfectly straight, moving gravel in 2 directions, creating a parabolic crown. And it was what they had always done. It was what they were taught. And then I kind of changed the way that we did that, changed the whole process of our gravel roads, and we reduced our gravel road consumption by about 20,000 yards of gravel per year. This picture here just shows a picture of a motor grader. You can look off in the distance. Right here, you can see this area of the road is roughed up, and this area is not. Right here and right here, there were distresses in the road, and the grader operator loosened those distresses up with a scarifier on the front of that machine prior to grading. Now, you might have a front mount scarifier, you might have a mid mount, you might have a rear mount, you might not have one at all. If you have one, I can't stress enough how important it is to use it. You might be afraid of it. Oh, we're going to pull all our culvert pipes out of the ground because they're not deep enough. We're going to hit ledges. We're going to break shanks and all that stuff. Yep, you're right. You will. We've been using scarifiers in this town for pushing 15 years. And in that much time since the day we started using them, I think we've hit 3 pipes. It does happen, but it's pretty rare. I think most of us know where our pipes are, especially if we mark them out. This thing that you see right here, that's a piece of ledge. And yep, you might occasionally hit a piece of ledge. Those teeth are replaceable. So I'm gonna let this slide play if it will, if I can get my pointer to work right again. Here we go. And you'll see the grader coming toward us. He's moving now, and as it gets closer, you might notice that you can see tires here, but the rear tires are not in line with it. That's because that articulator. Listen to me. That grader is articulated. There we go. Get my words to come out right. The grader is articulated because it adds to the stability of the machine. You should always be slightly articulated when grading a road. It gives you more stability. It makes it easier to discharge material outside of the drive tires so you're not driving on that pile. Another thing you might notice is he's cutting off some of this grass over here and bringing it out into the road. That's a lot of things people get nervous about. If you have a road that's very dry and dusty, this little bit of grass that you're cutting off isn't going to hurt you a bit. By the time you make 6, 8 passes back and forth, that grass will be gone. It'll be broke up. You'll get all the gravel that was in the base of it back. If you don't do that, how's the water get off the road over here? We have plenty of room for that water to sheet flow off the road on both sides. But if you leave a berm, because you don't want to cut that grass off, now that water can't get off the roadway. Blade tilt is important on a grader. This edge here, the top edge of your mold board, should be approximately 2 inches ahead of the bottom edge. That changes sometimes depending on the blade you put on the grader. If you run the rotating bits on your grader, they might require a very specific angle, or if you have fixed little teeth, this isn't a plug for any company, but if you're running what's called a Stinger system or the Olafors like cheese grater expanded metal blade, if you have a blade that requires a very specific angle, then that's kind of what you have to do. But even with the rotating bits or the fixed bits, the Stingers that don't rotate, the 2 inch leading edge here, leading top edge, is usually pretty easily attainable. What that does is it causes the gravel to come up across the blade like this. The blade's curved for a reason so that it will move that gravel forward and it will mix the gravel as you're grading. It's imperative that that gravel come up on the blade, slide up over it, and then fall forward and mix. If it's not mixing, if you're pushing a big pile of gravel down the road, it's going to look pretty. You'll skim over the top of those defects, but you won't actually be fixing any of them. You'll just fill them in and they'll be back in a couple of weeks. And if you have a big pile of gravel behind the blade on the slide, that probably means your blade was pitched too far back a little bit, or you're just trying to push too much gravel, and it won't mix and you'll wear out your slides prematurely and things like that. But if you look here, you can see that gravel sliding up over that blade. And this next one shows it even better. This is almost 6 inches above the blade. That gravel slides up and falls forward, and it's not piling up on the back side of the blade. And that tiny little bit of articulation, we're able to discharge that material outside of these tires so we're not driving on the windrow gravel. And again, here you can see it mixing as well. This is what I'm looking for when I'm operating a grader. I want that gravel to fall forward. I want it to come up, curve with the blade, and fall forward so that I'm always mixing that gravel. Let me back up here 1 second. There we go. I want to go right there. When you're going to start or stop a pass with a grader, as you're coming onto this gravel road where you want to put the blade in contact with the gravel road, or you're at the end of that pass and you're going to end contact with the gravel road, no matter what kind of machine you have or what kind of controls, whether it's an older antler rack, whether it's the fingertip controls that some machines have, or whether it's the two joysticks that some of them have, what I recommend using is the blade tilt function. Sit back away from where you want to start grading, reach down with the blade, touch the road with it rolled all the way back. Pick the blade up a couple inches and then tilt forward until the blade comes in contact with the road. If you tilt forward 2 inches and it just comes into contact, then the blade is a little bit too high. Roll it back again, lower it closer to the road, then tilt forward. And if it touches the road before you get to the 2 inches of forward lead on that blade, that's probably where you want to be. Roll it back, start driving forward, and as you approach that road, you slowly use blade tilt and you roll that blade into the gravel, that'll give you a symmetrical drop in the blade versus using the outer controls on your antler rack or pushing forward on your fingertip controls on both sides or your joysticks. Then the blade's going to go down in this like little bump, bump, bump fashion, or it's going to come up in that same manner, and you kind of build a staircase at the end of the road. Using blade tilt allows you to pitch onto the road and pitch off of the road in a nice controlled manner. I I guess that's not what that slide shows. How do you remove potholes? If you have potholes in a gravel road, how do you remove them? And let me see if I can get this to go somewhere like that. That doesn't work. Let's put it over there. There we go. Do you have a scarifier on your machine and do you use it? Two of you said we have it and we use it. Don't have it. Okay. My community had one and never used it. It was something that we'd had for many years and it just kind of sat dormant and never used it until we put it on. Mainly because everyone was afraid to use it. And I said, well, I'm the boss. I'll take the heat for it. If you rip a pipe out of the ground, you break a shank, whatever happens, it's my fault, not yours. Put it on. Let's go to work. How I remove potholes is with a scarifier. How I loosen up a road is with a scarifier. If you don't have a scarifier or you don't use a scarifier and you put down that mold board, which might be 12, 13, 14 feet long, depending on the grader, and you're trying to loosen a gravel surface just using the mold board, you know as well as I do, you're probably using all-wheel drive. You might be using the diff lock, and there might be smoke coming off of that grader blade as you're trying to loosen up the road. I can see Jeff Cathcart shaking his head. Yes, you know exactly what I'm talking about, right? And that was my world for a long time. And I said, we have that scarifier. Why the heck aren't we using it? We put it on, and it was a life-changing, game-changing moment for us. This right here, let me get my laser pointer again. This right here is how a pothole starts. This stone comes out of that spot in the gravel. That's all it takes. And you might look at that and say that's a bit of an exaggeration, but it's not. When it rains, that's going to fill with water. That tiny little hole is going to fill with water. A car driving down the road 20 miles an hour hits this. The water that's in that tiny little hole being driven over by a motor vehicle will be injected into the surrounding gravel at around 120, 150 psi at 20 miles an hour. Then this gets a little bit bigger and it collects more water. And now you have that repetitive cycle that it won't end until you remove the pothole. And if you look over here, you can see where that road's all loosened up. That is from the scarifier. That pothole there becomes this pothole here very quickly. That is the scarifier in use. Now, when you look at that picture, it looks like this thing is buried in the ground. It looks like it's 10 or 12 inches deep. And the truth is that scarifier or the teeth on that scarifier are probably 3 to 4 inches deep in the gravel. But as that machine moves forward, it loosens up that gravel, it piles up around the teeth, and it makes it look like it's 10 or 12 inches deep. After you put that scarifier down and you run down that road and you loosen up the surface, when then you put your belly blade down or the main mold board on that grader and you start grading, it feels like someone went out with a dump truck and put a foot of fresh gravel on that road for you to blade. It's, I can't tell you the difference it makes using that scarifier. Now that is supposed to be a video. Yeah, that's what I thought. That's what the scarifier looks like breaking the road up. Those chunks that you're seeing, that's because of the amount of dust control that we use. That's how well bonded our gravel is. And this is a spring of the year grading. Even after all winter long, we still have some residual dust control liquids on that road, and it makes that road bind up pretty well. The gentleman running the grader in this video, this was his first day using the scarifiers, and I took these videos that day. I saw him this year, so it was about probably 15 years after I shot this video, and I asked him, I said, Jason, you still using the scarifier? He goes, yeah, I still love it as much as I did on day one. So when I put it on the machine and sent him out to use it, he was nervous. He was pretty concerned, and he said, "Are you coming up to the road with me to watch what's going on?" And I said, "Absolutely not." And he was even more nervous, and he asked me why, and I said, "Well, You're already nervous. The last thing you need is a DPW director standing there looking over your shoulder while you're doing this. You know what you're doing. You go up there, have fun, call me if anything goes wrong, and I'll come up and we'll figure it out together. And I gave him an hour before I went up, and then I went up and I shot this video. And when I first saw him, he comes around the corner with that scarifier down, and all I can see is teeth. His. He was smiling from ear to ear. Pulls up beside me and he stops and he says, "This is amazing." I said, "What's so amazing?" He goes, "I'm in second gear, idling along in two-wheel drive. No four-wheel drive, no diff lock, and look at the amount of gravel that he's boiling up here in the road to work with. When you put your blade down on that versus a compacted gravel road, how much easier is this going to grade?" And from that day forward, we've used the scarifiers all the time. This is just another video of it. You can see it here as he moves forward. You can if I can make it work. Here we go. Same thing. He's just easing along at an idle. No four-wheel drive, no diff lock. And then that's a 14-foot mold board on that grader right there that we'll be using to grade the road with. This right here, all this washboarding that you're seeing in this photo with water trapped in between it, this was caused by a couple of different things. Too little crown and possibly gravel that has an issue. This road being flat, I don't think that was caused by vehicle traffic as much as it is the gravel itself and not having crown. If you have washboards on a gravel road, if the washboards are straight, and not angled, chances are they were caused by vehicle traffic or the gravel or not enough crown or all three. If the washboards are angled, that's caused by us. That's either the grader or a York rake going down the road causing those washboards. I'm gonna move along here. I thought I cut the slides down in this program way more than what I'm seeing here for a slide count. So we're gonna move along a little faster. This is too much crown. This is also a parabolic crown. This is that rounded crown in the center where we're doing that three-pass grading. One pass up one side, one down the other, and then one right down the middle. And the cars just don't want to drive over here because they feel like they're going to fall off the road because it's too exaggerated a crown when we get over near the ditch. Already talked about that. That's what a parabolic crown is going to look like or feel like to a motorist, and they won't drive like this, especially on the wrong side of the road. They're going to drive right here in the center of the road. That leads to vehicle conflict, and it makes that road feel like it's extremely narrow. When we changed from parabolic crowns to tangential crowns on our gravel road, my phone started ringing. Residents were calling me, telling me, "You made the road so much wider. I don't like this. The road's never been this wide. I've lived here my whole life." And I mean, I haven't lived here my whole life yet, but I'm working on it. But there were people complaining about the road, saying I made it wider. So I would go out and I would look at it with them. I said, "Okay, where did I make the road wider?" "Right here in front of my house." I said, "Did I cut your lawn off when I went by with the grader?" "Well, no, you didn't." I said, "The other side of the road's got a stone wall on it. I didn't move that either." "No, you didn't." "Well, how did I make the road wider?" "I didn't make the road any wider. I just made it feel wider." I'm using the whole road now by getting rid of this parabolic crown and putting a tangential crown on it. If your grader blade looks like this right here, if you have a big hoop in the center of it, something's wrong. If you're running a motor grader to grade your roads, how often do you measure or check that mold board? You get out with a tape measure and you stick the tape measure on the back side of this blade up against the mold board and then measure to the bottom of the blade, and you do that all the way across the blade. And if you have a half an inch of difference between the corner and the center, that's it. No more. Flip the blades. Take this blade off, put it over on this side, take that blade off, put it on that side. We have to flip these blades almost every day, sometimes twice a day when we're grading, if we're doing a lot of mileage. If you get up to a half an inch discrepancy of wear, you got to flip that blade. I've often been asked about, what about if we just take a chalk line, snap a line across there, and get out the old smoke wrench or plasma cutter and just cut that off and make it straight again? Please don't do that. You're throwing away taxpayer money if you do that. Take the time to flip this blade back and forth. It's not going to take all day. It shouldn't even take an hour, quite frankly. We did it right out on the road. We didn't even bring the machine back to the shop. We had air on each truck. I could put an impact gun and a hose, and the grader operator could flop those blades back and forth very, very quickly. If you go down the road and you leave a high shoulder, so if you don't cut all the way to the foreslope of the ditch with that grader, if you leave a berm over there, that becomes what's called a secondary ditch or a dam. Damn it. This is probably my last webinar ever for Connecticut if I use language like that. So I got to be careful, excuse me, for APWA. So I got to be a little careful with that. But you got to get rid of those high shoulders. This time of year, no one wants to do it. You have all that grass and all that vegetation over there. You don't want to reach out over the top of that ditch and cut that all off and bring it into the road. I understand the hesitancy to want to do that, but it's important that we always reach out over the top of that ditch, cut everything, and bring it all back into the road. If you don't, you're leaving a lot of your gravel over there. What do you think built up that high shoulder or that area beside your roadway? That's all your gravel getting pushed off and getting plowed off. Recycle that, bring it back into the road. In the spring of the year, it's a little easier to do that because you have less vegetation. If you don't, water is going to run longitudinally down that road until it can find a place to get off or escape. And for every foot that that water travels in length and downhill, it increases in volume and velocity to the point where it's going to wash away your gravel road. This picture was taken the day after this road was graded. Here's the ditch. Here's where they did not cut. They did not reach out here with a grader, and they only went this far, and it's just starting to rain, and you can already see the water ponding up right here, and it's going to run down the travel surface instead of over here in the ditch where it belongs. And all the towns, all these pictures, I'm not telling you what town these are in, so they can be protected. I'm not going to call anybody out. That's just another picture of that same spot. This one here is not the fault of the municipality. I was out driving around in rural America on a very well compacted gravel road. I was really impressed. And then I saw this. Right here is a culvert header. This is all uphill, so everything's draining this way. It's kind of wet here normally. And my guess is this was caused when two cars met one another. Somebody pulled over here to get out of the way, and they caused this little low spot in the roadway. Well, now they've cut off any sheeting action that's going to happen with water getting off the road, and all this standing water is eventually soaking into the subbase. So the sooner you can find and address these problems, the better your gravel road's going to be. This secondary ditch here, this is downstream from those pictures I showed you just a few slides ago. This water's coming all the way down the hill. It's supposed to go off here and go into this culvert. Most of it's missing, and it's coming out right across this blacktop road. This blacktop road right here, this is on a pretty substantial corner. And if you're a motorcycle rider like I am, I probably wouldn't be riding today in this rainstorm, but tomorrow when it dries up, I might. And then I come around this corner and there's all this loose gravel. That's pretty dangerous to all motorists, not just motorcyclists. This shows a picture of a grader cutting all this vegetation and bringing it right out into the roadway. And many people are skeptical to do this. If you're grading enough, if you go back and forth enough, the vegetation itself, most of it's going to come back off the road or be bladed back off the road. But the gravel that's trapped in its roots, you keep that on the road. You paid for it. You might as well take it back and use it. Um, if you had dust on your road this summer, if you have gravel roads and you had dust anywhere or dusty roads ever, a little bit of grass is not going to hurt you. If your roads are dusty, you don't have enough polymer there. You don't have enough dust control to hold that stuff on the road. If you see dust in the mirror when you drive down the road, if you can see through it but it's dusty, that's about a half an inch per year. If you can't quite see through it, maybe a little bit, there's a car back there and they're fuzzy, that's an inch per year. And if you're looking in the mirror and all you can see is the headlights of the car behind you, but you can't see the actual car, that's 2 inches a year. The average dusty gravel road, you will lose 2 inches a year in gravel just to dust. Look at the vegetation on the side of the road. Is it covered in dust? That's 2 inches a year. People complaining they can't hang their laundry out, their pools are filling up with dust. That's 2 inches a year that you're losing in gravel. You may have to do some spot regraveling or spot regrading any time of the year, depending on volume, velocity of traffic, other things like high school graduations, kids that just got their driver's license and they go out with their big four-wheel drives that are all jacked up and blow donuts on your gravel road because it's easier than on an asphalt road. I could be speaking about myself back all those years ago when I graduated high school. Who knows? I may or may not have gone out and unintentionally damaged a gravel road. Those things will cause us, public works professionals, to have to go regrade that road. A lot of things will. Winter is one of them. I think probably the DPW is the most damaging thing to a gravel road in the spring of the year. The roads are soft and we have to go out and maintain them. This road here is the same road you saw that grader on earlier, where we saw the scarifier coming this way, and there was those two little scratch marks, and we were cutting off this grass. This is a week after it was regraded, and this road stayed like this all summer. It never changed. This is the same road. This is probably a month and a half, 2 months after it was graded. You can still see some evidence of dust control on it, and we're keeping our aggregate on the road, and the road held up really, really well. What can you control? Can you control moisture on your roads? Yes or no? You can unmute yourself and tell me, or you can answer in the chat. I can't see the chat right now, but I'll try to get caught up here. Maybe I can. No, I can't pull it up. Can I? No, I can't. Not while I'm.
Um, Jeff had mentioned something a few minutes ago. Berms were never removed by our previous road foreman. I spent a great deal of time this summer just removing them and pulling the mounds of gravel back. He applies 30% chloride water after each grading.
That sounds like music to my ears, Jeff, to hear that kind of stuff. That 32% calcium chloride solution, what that means is it's 32% calcium and the rest is water. If it used to work better than it is today, like I've had that issue where when we first started buying a dust control pallet, it worked really well. And over years, I'm like, wow, this stuff doesn't seem to hold the moisture like it used to. So I had it tested and I wasn't getting 32% calcium chloride. I was getting about 22% calcium chloride. And I said, oh, I'm paying for 32, but I'm only getting 22. So I'm going to put up, I think there's two or three questions here. Can you control moisture? Can you control traffic? Can you control the quality of the grader? Can you, or the gravel? And can you control the grader speed? The answer to every single one of these is yes. You can control moisture by adding dust control pallets like liquid mag or liquid calcium. You can also use it in a flake form. Can you control traffic? In a sense, yes. That's a law enforcement issue. You have them go out and control traffic. It's not really our world to do. I mean, you can do traffic calming things. You can put bump outs and all that kind of stuff, but that's typically in cities on asphalt roads, not on gravel. Can you control the quality of your gravel? Absolutely you can. Write a better bid spec or blend it better yourselves. And can you control the grader speed? Yes, you can. And if you have one of those operators who wants to drive at 42 miles an hour while they're grading roads, maybe find a new job for them somewhere else in the DPW and have the one that's going to go out there at 3 to 7 miles an hour with the grader. That's the optimum grader speed, is 3 to 7 miles an hour. Here are some things you can do for your dust control: flake mag or flake calcium. They work, but man, they're incredibly labor intensive. And if you have leather boots on when you decide to put those things out, you probably won't be able to get your boots off your feet fast enough if you get the chloride on them. So protect yourselves. Wear rubber boots, rubber gloves, things like that. I much
Um,
prefer. I'm sorry.
Mike, no, that's all right. Jeff added in this year it was so dry chloride had a difficult time activating. I ended up spreading water on it.
A lot of towns did that this year, Jeff. I've worked with several, especially this fall. I was doing some grader training, and they were telling me the same thing, that they had to go out there and add water as well. You know what? It's almost noon, and rather than I'm gonna just blow through these last slides so that we can unmute everybody. That's my contact info. I'm gonna leave that up there for a few seconds if you want to take a picture of it or all that. And I'm gonna stop my slideshow because I went way over my time, and I want you all to be able to ask questions directly to me. I'm gonna stick around. You don't have to leave. If you want to, you can. I'll stick around as long as you want, but I'll put that up there. I'll leave that for another couple seconds here. And
Hey, Mike, I got a quick question for the group that might be helpful.
yep,
Do you do custom in-person classes or training?
I
So,
sure do.
somebody that has gravel roads could invite you in and do a one-day go through. And
Absolutely. Yep.
awesome.
We do have, can you, Beth? Um, Mike Sear asks, if there is a heavy vegetarian on the shoulders, do you recommend pulling it into the road and removing it before grading?
I do. I recommend pulling it into the road, and if it's all vegetation, sure, I would get rid of it. But if there's any gravel in it, I would want to keep that. And one of the best ways to do that is purchase what's called a skeleton bucket or a shaker bucket for your loader. So you hone those materials out into the roadway. Then you drive down the road with this bucket that it's slotted basically. It looks like a giant cheese grater. You pick it up and you shake the bucket. The gravel falls out of it, and all that you're left with in the bucket is the big stones, the lumber, and the vegetation. That way you hang on to those materials that you spent so much money on. Let's see. I'm looking at the chat now too.
All right, so since you're monitoring your chat, I'm going to go ahead and put the QR code up. So if you guys could take a minute to.
And feel free to unmute yourselves and ask any questions of me too. I mean, I want to get to your questions if you have them. Got some folks from Barrie, Vermont here on the call today, I see, from way up north or where I live.
Hey, Mike, I got a question.
Sure, go ahead.
So town of Stafford, highway foreman, we're starting to see a lot of stone segregation, and all like the stones are going to the gutters. We do a DOT spec process mixed with millings. I'm just wondering what your thoughts were on that.
So, you know, the DOT spec, you're in Connecticut, correct?
Yes.
So what I would recommend is you get the actual specification, look at it, see what it is. How long ago did you grade the road, or what's the time distance between grading and seeing the windrowing of stones?
Probably about a few weeks.
Okay, so a few weeks, that's pretty fast. Are you compacting the roads after you grade them?
Yes, we
All
are.
right.
With a
And
single
what about dust control?
mag chloride.
All right, so it sounds like you're doing everything correct, or you're doing the best management stuff. My next guess would be two things. One, you don't have quite enough fines in that DOT spec for your gravel road, and or traffic is traveling at such a high rate of speed that it's blowing off the fines as well.
Yeah,
Those are some things that really cause that windrow gravel or windrow stones. I mean, that's really not that uncommon. And this year it's been incredibly hard to keep enough moisture on the road to prevent that. So it could be a seasonal thing, this year, but it also could be the gravel spec itself. And, DOT specs are good. They're nice, they're easy to use, and everybody can get them. They're easily obtainable, but they may not be the right specification for your particular municipality.
okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Now, does everyone see the QR code?
I can see it.
All right, perfect.
Yeah, you're good.
I had a quick question for you.
Sure.
During winter operations, we switched to mixing chip seal in to the sand when we go out to treat our dirt roads.
Mhm.
What do you think that has as far as effects go towards the stability of the road?
I wonder if you learned that technique from some bald-headed redneck from Northeast Massachusetts. It looks a lot like me because I did the exact same.
Just something I tried to implement a few years ago. It just seems to help a lot with traffic, with the ice conditions and everything like that.
It does more than that. So you're absolutely on the right track here. That leftover chipstone that you have, you mix that in with your winter sand for your gravel roads. You're putting a quality aggregate on your gravel road in the wintertime, and a lot of that's going to stick around and still be there in the spring, and you blade that right back into your road. I've been doing that for years and years. The winter aggregate that I use on gravel roads, when I was a DPW director, I used half-inch crushed gravel as my winter road sand. Because I didn't have money in the summer to buy gravel, but in the winter, in the name of safety, I could spend all the money I wanted. So I bought crushed gravel, half-inch crushed gravel in the wintertime, and that's what I would spread on my gravel roads for winter sand. And I would add chip seal stone to that if I had any left over.
Thank you.
It's a great question.
All right, we have time.
I got one for you.
I was going to say we have time for one more. Go ahead, Jeff.
We were getting our gravel from our local pit, and a lot of it was, and sand from a local pit over the years. And it's the same place we've been getting it right along. And when I took over a year ago, if we keep on doing things the same way we have been, we still have the same results. I started going to a different pit where in the winter time, I was mixing from Florence crushed stone, and I was mixing in grits from crushed marble in with our sand, because our sand I think it was way too fine for the road. And there was nothing to really grab on. And then I started getting complaints that people were saying, well, there's no sand on the road because the grits were white. And but nobody was sliding off the road. So.
What was your question about that, Jeff? Whether or not to use that type of stuff?
Well, no, I was just saying that I was mixing it in with the sand that
okay.
we have been using, just to give it more grits than actual sand, because our sand is very, very fine that we were getting, and it didn't seem to be able to use it for traction, you know.
Sure. Yep.
Mike, we do have a question from Darren in Connecticut. How about salting roads like Blacktop Road in winter? We use treated salt.
Okay. I put no salt on my gravel roads in the winter. The aggregate that I spread in the wintertime is that 1/2-inch crushed product. The only material that's in that is a little bit of liquid magnesium chloride to keep it from freezing so that it's still spreadable. Other than that, I don't put salt on a gravel road. The gravel is wide open. There's no time for dilution of any salts on gravel. The salt will go right into the surface and subsurface of your gravel road. That can cause water contamination problems, and also it can prevent your gravel road from freezing. Gravel roads, ideally, you want to get them frozen and keep them frozen in the wintertime. They're much easier to maintain, and putting salt on them, I've never been an advocate for that, and I never will be.
All
It
right.
softens the roads up. Yeah.
Mike, this has been a really great session. I know everyone walked away with a lot of information. Again, we did post Mike's information in the chat. I'll just bring it back down. And, oh, never mind, hold on. And we'll do that. So if you have any other follow-up questions for Mike, you can contact him directly at mdsmith@umass.edu. Again, thank you so much for joining us, Mike. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, I want to thank you and Tom both for inviting me. I've had a really good time. I really enjoy this, and thanks everybody for tuning in today.
Thanks a lot, Mike. Thanks.